Thank you, Mark. Mark, when you read such a long CV of me, people will think that I'm an important person, but I am not. I am only a simple soldier at the service of the Cultural Diplomacy Institute of the Cultural Diplomacy, which is an outstanding institution, and that I'm very proud of contributing to the efforts which are made here. We are going to discuss the best practice in the cultural diplomacy in the Arab world. In a panel that I'm going to moderate, what I'm going to do before that is to draw the framework on which we are going to discuss what is the cultural diplomacy as far as the Arab countries are concerned, and to enter into detail will be done by very distinguished panelists that will follow my presentation. The titles that I'm going to dwell on are the ones that you see on the screen: Arab world after the Arab Spring, in a few sentences only, then the cultural diplomacy in the Arab world, and I'm going to discuss it under three headlines. One, cultural diplomacy among the Arab countries. The second one, between Arab countries and non-Arab countries that are involved in the crises in the Middle East. And third one, cultural diplomacy, which is exported from Arab countries to Europe through the refugees. The Arab world after the Arab Spring is still in turmoil. One country made a little bit further step. It is a fundamental change in the entire Arab world, whether the Arab Spring broke out in that particular country or not. The Arab world in general is going through a transformation. I mentioned the Tunisian example because it is different from the others. Tunisia is the only country that went to the next step in this transformation process. Why I say so? Because for us to be able to say that the Arab Spring brought democracy to the countries where it took place, we had to see that the political parties that came to power immediately after the Arab Spring should be replaced by other political parties that are democratically elected. If this happens, we could say that, yes, Arab Spring brought democracy to that country. And this happened so far only in Tunisia. The political party that came to power after the Arab Spring was Ennahda, and after a period of 1 year or so, after very transparent elections, the Nida Tunis party won the majority, and the transition from Ennahda to Nida Tunis was made very smoothly. So we can say that it is only in Tunisia that Arab Spring came to the second stage. The difficulties in security, the fragility of the security, etc., continues in Tunisia, but still we can say that Tunisia is different from the others. Egyptian example is a little different because in Egypt, again, a democratically elected government came to power, the Freedom and Justice Party, and President Morsi became president, but it was overtaken by a military junta 1 year later, and so we have to see how the situation will develop in Egypt. So far, we cannot say that Arab Spring in Egypt brought democracy to this country. In Syria, Libya, and Yemen, of course, they are still in difficulties, in turmoil, and we are going to discuss perhaps in further detail here. Bahrain is a separate case because in Bahrain, the first signals of the demonstration that signaled the Arab Spring in Bahrain was repressed with the help of a neighboring country, Saudi Arabia. So there, it is not the same category with the others. Now I turn to the cultural diplomacy in the Arab world. Cultural diplomacy in the Arab world has three important features which has to be borne in mind when we discuss cultural diplomacy there. First of all, when we talk of the Arab world is not a monolith. It is not one country. It is an amalgam of several countries with different political regimes, different level of social development, different ideologies, and the most important is different political interests. So we should not say that when we talk of the Arab world, it is like one country. It's not like that. Or it's a one monolith block where everyone has the same perception of cultural diplomacy. It's not like that. One aspect of it is the cultural diplomacy among the Arab countries. And among the Arab countries, of course, the fact that it is not a monolith, then there may be differences among them. And when we think of the past of the Arab countries, the present Arab countries has come into existence with the spread of Islam and with the introduction of Arabic language as the language of Quran to countries which were not Arab at all. They were different countries. As Islam spread as of the 7th century or 6th century, then it also introduced Arabic language, and Arabic language superseded the local languages that existed. In the Middle East, it's superseded, for instance, Syriac, Akkadian, and Babylonian, and the other language. In Maghreb, it superseded, to a certain extent, Berber language, which is still spoken. And in certain other countries, like in Turkey, Persia, Kurds, and Malaysians, as the distinguished speaker who preceded me was talking about Islam in his country. So they speak their own language, and the Arab language is not adopted by the people there. Having the same language and having the same religion, of course, is a very important factor when we talk of the cultural diplomacy. Language facilitates communications with the others. So one Arab country talking to other, they can enter in an easier interaction, cultural interaction with the other people. This is a facility, yes. Religion being the same, majority of Arab countries are Muslim, majority only, not all, and big majority. But there are also differences coming from the history. So having the same language and the same religion is something that facilitates cultural interaction. Religion, of course, is one of the most important dimension or component of the culture. So when you are of the same religion, there are a lot of affinities between the culture of one side and the culture of the other side, so it is very important. As a result of this, having the same religion and having the same language facilitates communication and cultural interaction among the Arab countries. But sometimes, curiously enough, when we go into detail, sometimes it is an impediment, curiously enough, because people, when they meet other people who are Muslim and who speak Arabic, they have more difficulties sometimes in entering into cultural interaction than with someone of another language, who speaks a different language and who comes from a different religion. Why so? Because people may believe that he speaks also Arabic and he is also Muslim, so why he shouldn't accept my values rather than me accepting his values? So this may be an impediment against the cultural interaction. So it is not always in the positive direction. This was the cultural diplomacy among the Arab countries. Another thing which makes difficult the cultural interaction among the Arab countries is the division of tribes by borders that are artificial. The borders among many of the Arab countries are artificial. They were drawn by the colonial powers according to their interest, according to their priorities. So it had nothing to do with the geography, with topography, and with the tribes. Now you may see Abu Shammar tribe both in Saudi Arabia and in Jordan, but since they are cut into two by the borders, by the international borders, in the long run, Abu Shammar in Saudi Arabia developed a different culture, different from the Abu Shammar, the same tribe, in Jordan. So this added an additional obstacle to the people who were able to communicate easily within the Arab world. Then comes, of course, the difficulties, the infighting within Arabs. There are many Arab countries who are fighting with each other. Iraq invaded Kuwait in 1990, and Saudi Arabia is intervening in Yemen. Egyptian planes and the United Arab planes are believed to have bombed Libyan towns in order to destroy the military powers that were there. So it means that there are also difficulties and clashes between the Arabs. So it's not always easy to say that we are Arabs, we speak Arabic, we are Muslim, so we should understand each other easily. It doesn't go that way very easily. Now I come to another subject. There was this subject of cultural diplomacy among Arab countries, and the other one is cultural diplomacy between Arab countries and non-Arab countries, which is here in number 2. Of course, we need also cultural diplomacy between Arab countries and non-Arab countries, especially the ones that are involved in the crises, several crises in the Middle East. What type of cultural diplomacy do we need there? Two types of cultural diplomacy. Cultural diplomacy is needed in order to promote friendship with people that you support, in order to give more substance. But you need also cultural diplomacy with the party that you are fighting. In the Middle East, there are non-Middle Eastern countries, non-Arab countries that are intervening in the crisis there. So they are intervening. For instance, Russia and Iran intervenes in the Syrian crisis to support the regime. When you support the regime, you have to support your efforts of this cooperation with cultural diplomacy in order to give more substance, more cordiality to your relations. Both Iran and Russia are doing this at present. Perhaps one of the distinguished panelists in the subsequent panel will touch upon this question. In order to give more confidence to the other side, you have to use cultural diplomacy, saying that we are here only to help you, and you should not have any suspect. You should not worry about my good intentions. This is for the non-Arab countries. What happened there? This is for non-Arab countries that are active in the Middle Eastern countries. And for those countries, again, taking the example of Syria, there are countries that are supporting the opposition in Syria. They have to do the same thing as the Iranians and Russians are doing with the regime. Those who are supporting the opposition should utilize also the cultural diplomacy in order to create more confidence in them, and they should gain the confidence of the other side. This is for when you are supporting one of the parties there. But you have to use the cultural diplomacy also when, taking again the Syrian example, if America is acting against the interest of the regime there, it should utilize cultural diplomacy with the regime or with the supporters of the regime, telling them that we are here in order to save you from your leader who is misguiding you. This is the cultural diplomacy that they have to use. Now I turn to a third category of diplomacy, diplomacy between the refugee community and the authorities and the people where these refugees go from the Middle East. Of course, the instability in the Middle East forced many people of this region to seek asylum or to become refugees in the European countries where life is smoother. We need cultural diplomacy in such cases more than in any other case. Why? Because these people are coming from an entirely different culture, and they're going to settle down in a new country, new environment, new religion, new way of life, and it needs a lot of efforts, both from the side of the immigrants who go there, and also from the side of the authorities of these countries, receiving countries. The authorities of the receiving countries will have to bear in mind that these people are coming from a region, war-torn region. They must have left their home, their friend, their environment, their possessions, part of their possessions, and some members of their family may have been killed, perished during the crisis. Some may have been drowned in the sea when they were trying to cross the sea in order to reach European countries. And when they arrive in their new country, they will not be able to speak the language of that country. If they are old in age, they cannot learn. It is not easy for an old age person to learn language. And what is it? And in such circumstances, of course, it is up to the authorities of these countries to understand, to put themselves in the shoes of the immigrants and try to figure out the difficulties that they are facing and enter into cultural interaction with them. Why this is necessary? It is not only necessary for the welfare of the immigrants, it is necessary for the countries that receive them. Why? Because if these people do not feel comfortable, are not integrated in the society where they go, they will become like the young men in France and in Belgium who carried out the terrorist attacks. You may have noticed that in most cases, it was young men from the immigrant families who settled down in France or in Belgium either since decades or since generations, but they felt alienated or sidelined by the country, by the society. When you are sidelined, when you are alienated, and when you are isolated, then you are a target for the terrorist groups. You can easily become a terrorist. Turkey and Germany made a mistake in 1960s for the integration of the immigrant society in the country. It is full of good examples, lessons. These lessons could be benefited by many other countries. When in 1960s, German authorities invited unskilled workforce from Turkey. Tens of thousands of people came here in Germany, but both the Turkish authorities and German authorities thought that these people, after having saved a certain amount of money, sufficient to buy a pair of oxen or to open a small shop in their village, they will go back to Turkey and set a new life. And this was the expectation. For this reason, neither the Turkish authorities nor the German authorities made any effort to integrate these unskilled workers to the German society, and they suffered the consequences later on. It's only after the third or fourth generation that Turkish community in Germany is now trying to integrate in the German society a little better. So this is an example that can be utilized. I don't know what shall I do now. Is there anyone who could help me? No. There is no problem. So this is an example that could be learned. This is a lesson that could be utilized. And for the immigrant society also, there are duties that they have to do, because they are going to a country. They cannot expect that the population of the new host country will change their habits and their way of life because there are immigrants from the Middle East or from Arab countries. They will not do it. So there are duties and the tasks that have to be that has to be owned and assumed by the authorities of the recipient country and also by the immigrants. This could be achieved only through the cultural interaction. And now, in the panel that will follow this, we are going to see how it could be done, and we will listen to very highly authorized and skilled panelists, and we will learn from them. Thank you very much for your attention.
Your Excellency, Mr. Yakis, thank you very much for an excellent lecture, and I think we've, again, benefited in many ways from your insights and experience. We'd be very happy to take your questions, your comments, your feedback. As always, raise your hand, and if you could briefly introduce yourself, that would be ideal. Okay.
I thank you, Mr. Minister, for your lecture. This is Hatem from Egyptian Embassy here in Berlin. I have a small comment of what Your Excellency said. If you'd like to speak about a coup in Egypt, this is somehow unfair. So now we're speaking about 3 years, Egypt in different era, and the system in Egypt is legitimate and accepted from the whole world. And also, if about 30 million people go to the streets to change the system of Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, when the people have seen that their identity and their culture there is a big problem with their identity, I think also that this is very important to respect the people in Egypt. Egypt is not a small country, just to say this is a coup. Well, if anyone in Egypt follow up what's happened in 2012, 2013, yes, we admit there was fair elections in Egypt and there was a democratic president. And what did president did in this year that he ruled Egypt? If you see that there is some decision has taken that he doesn't respect the judge at all, he say, I will take a decision and it's not accepted from the judge, from the court in Egypt. This is not the democracy. That's why the people in 2013 have gone to the street to trouble and to say the president, no, you are not allowed to be a president anymore for Egypt. This is very important. And now you see the system and the regime in Egypt now is overall and respected and legitimate in the whole world. So why you are speaking until now about coup in Egypt?
Thank you.
You know, this is the first point.
I will support you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
I will support you because I am a person that joined Turkish diplomacy, as Mark mentioned, in 1960s.
Yes.
Every 10 years, I had to defend what a good thing was military coup in Turkey,
Yeah.
that we had a military coup, and thanks to the military coup, we saved Turkey. This is what I had to do in the foreign countries where I served. I served something like 40 years in diplomacy,
Yeah.
and every 10 years, I had to do this difficult job. And now you are also in the same position. You have to do the same.
Yeah.
And I had to defend in the countries where I was serving that the 1960 coup in Turkey saved Turkey from a catastrophe. And in 1971, again, the military saved Turkey from the catastrophe. And in 1980, again, I was in Syria at the time, I said the same. And I understand the situation in Egypt. And I know I served as ambassador in Egypt for 4 years between 95 and 99. So I know all the details and I know the intricacies of the Egyptian societies. And in my own country, because of the articles that I was exactly trying to tell what you are telling me now, I was criticized by people, my colleagues in the government, because I always said that the military coup is not something good. In Turkey, there was an attempt to carry out a military coup very recently, and the people went to the street, prevented it. And in a country where the regime at present, Erdogan's regime, was not supported by everybody, but despite this, when they had to choose between military regime and the elected government, no matter how imperfect it is, they preferred the selected government, elected government. So this is the maturity of democracy. Yes. And when I was criticized by my friends in the government, it was when I told them that if a regime, military or otherwise, has established its authority in a country, you have to enter into cooperation with them. Because you are representing Turkish people and they are representing Egyptian people. So if any authority, through one way or another, establish their authority in the country, you have to enter into relation. And it was not right for Turkey to interrupt its relations neither with Syria nor with Egypt. I criticize this. But if you say that the Arab Spring brought democracy in Egypt, I cannot accept it. Because democracy is the result of free and transparent elections. So when this is done, but not by a military regime, by a civilian regime, then I will add Egypt the way I have done it for Tunisia. I will say that this time it is also for Egypt. Yeah. So I know your position, I respect your position, but of course democracy and transparent elections is something else. It is difficult.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I'd not like to take the chance for others to ask, but Allah, we have fair elections. We had constitutions, and millions of Egypt on the street to have this constitution, and then a president of Egypt has been elected, and then we have a parliament now. And why it should be respected like that? I mean, the whole world respect this. I think that Turkey has to think again of what's relating the relation with Egypt, and just to stop interfering in the internal relation in Egypt. This is also
Turkey is
very
not
important.
A paradise democracy.
Yeah.
We have a lot of imperfections, but we are trying to correct it.
Yes, the other thing, I'm sorry, the last month, because of the Egyptian Emirati intervention in Libya, as this intervention in Libya, I think it's totally also unfair. While what Egypt has done after killing 21 Coptic Egyptians have been killed, have been slaughtered by Daesh in Libya. And when Egypt made a flight and made a military action, it was against ISIS. And Egypt has 1,200 kilometers on the Libyan borders, and we have to protect it. If we leave these borders, then all the migrants and the world people will come to Europe. And to make a big problem for Europe.
It's not a war, but a military action.
Yes, but this is for the people. Libya is a country with 2 million kilometers, and I think Egypt has the right to defend itself when it's something relating to the national security of the people of Egypt.
I am opposed to Turkey's carrying out military raids in Syria, despite the fact that Syria is in turmoil. Yeah. I am opposed.
Yeah. But thank you very much. Thank you.
We have to see. So we have many questions. We're out of time. We have another Egyptian voice. We have others. I'm not sure how to deal with this. Maybe one or two brief comments, questions. All right. We'll start. Just to be fair on this side as well, and then we have our speakers. Okay.
Positive discrimination in favor of ladies.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for this presentation. You raised some topics which are very related to my praxis. I'm Tatiana. I'm a part of this world since 2009, since I came here for the first time, working as a dance professional and in education sector at the government of Lower Austria for many, many years. So what I would like just to comment and to underline is also the current problem in Austria trying to develop concept to raise value transparency for cultural diplomacy of Austrian society in order to bring this culture to the refugees closer. So what people realized, they realized that newcomers are bringing questions, and people in Austria are confronted with themselves not knowing really what is the homogeneous one Austrian culture. So there are many, many concepts developed starting from kindergarten, elementary level, and thinking still what is actually our culture, what is European, and what is in the global context possible to translate to guests. But otherwise, artists and art projects, especially in informal circles, people who are working in cultural communities, they can more easily transfer this variety of expressions into one language, like many ones in one. And this is the question also of Islam and all other religions. It is diversity in this one unity also to be discussed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. My name is Dia Al-Asadi. I'm from Iraq. Obviously, cross-cultural diplomacy is as important as internal diplomacy, and thanks a lot. You have touched upon both aspects. You talked about how cultural diplomacy is important between the different components of a given society and how it is important between different countries. My question is, and I hope that it is not going to be embarrassing, is Turkey innocent of international intervention? Because one of the factors hindering and impeding and jeopardizing the effort of establishing powerful cross-cultural diplomacy is the intervention of superpowers or powers that think that they are threatened or they have interest in certain areas of the world into the business of other countries. So the question is Turkey innocent of intervening in Syria and Iraq and neighboring countries and its way of competition with Iran or other countries, because Turkey has its own worldview, has its own ambitions, and other countries do as well. So this is also one of the factors that affect establishing powerful cultural diplomacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Actually, the new concept which is invented recently, perhaps 10 or 15 years ago, this responsibility for protection. This new concept changed a lot of things in diplomacy, in international relations. It has actually diluted or put an end to the Westphalian system, which means that the countries are sovereign within their territory, but equal when comparing with the others. So national sovereignty was the important principle of the international relations since 1648, more than 350 years. And with the responsibility for protection, this is diluted. It was violated, the national sovereignty was violated for the first time in Libya. At that time, some countries, China and Russia, opposed it. And I personally, I am against the responsibility for protection, because what do you protect? You protect a people from their leaders. When you open this door, it may lead to such exercises, such examples, that you will never recognize your own theory, your own principle of protection, whom you are protecting. Because every country may claim that the people of the country X has to be protected from their leader and intervene there. This is not a principle that can continue, and I am against this. And to be consistent with myself, I'm against Turkey's intervention beyond its borders in Iraq and in Syria. Turkey could do better by not intervening there, but keeping the relations in an excellent manner and telling them, look, we are friends. You are doing something wrong. Please don't do, and let me help you to correct this. Let's do it together, but not through the military means.
So, Mr. Yakis, we have a number of more questions, although now I have to be my police officer role. The bad news is we do have to conclude this session. The good news is you'll notice the topic for the panel discussion coming up is the same, and the chairman is Mr. Yasar Yakis. So there will be a chance to continue. We're not trying to cut anyone. You've generated a lot of interest, but I think just in the name of protocol, we do need to continue to the next session, where Mr. Yakis will stay on the center stage, please, as chairman of the panel discussion.